Hello from Becky Me. Welcome to this evening's programme.
First, they've waited 8 years for answers. And tonight, families who lost loved ones in the Potters Bar rail crash say they've got some of them, but not all. 7
people were killed and 76 injured when a train travelling from London King's Cross to King's Lynn derailed on the East Coast Main Line in May of 2002. Well, today an inquest jury said the crash was a result of a points failure.
Our correspondent Neil Bradford was at the inquest and he joins us now live from Potters Bar station. Neil, so disappointment among the victims' families then?
Yes, what they really wanted was a wide-ranging public inquiry. Instead, after all this time, what they got was a rather long and complex inquest that they say didn't go far enough. Jurors had a questionnaire of 16 questions they had to answer. Some of those questions quite complex and involved, but in the end, it was just a few that mattered. It took them 3 days to reach the verdict.
These are the dramatic last moments of the 12:45 wagon service to King's Lynn, caught on CCTV. It had derailed just metres from the station. 6 passengers were killed, all of them in the last carriage. Emma Knights from Cambridgeshire, German Cambridge graduate Janelle Schickler, Austin Kark, Alexander Ogunwusi, Cheer Sin Lin and Cheer Chin Woo. A 7th victim, 80-year-old Agnes Quinlivan, was killed by falling debris. 8 years have now passed since that tragic day. For the families, the inquest has failed to answer some key questions.
It's been the most difficult journey I don't think anyone could ever envisage, because nobody expects to lose someone the way we've all lost somebody here. And nobody expects to wait 8 years to understand why it all happened. And now we've only got some of the answers, we haven't got all the answers yet.
Today, the jury concluded that a points failure caused the crash. They found they were unsafe and not inspected or maintained adequately. These pictures, taken just hours after the crash, show missing nuts and bolts on the track responsible for the derailment on May the 10th, 2002. The train was travelling at almost 100 miles per hour when it derailed just outside the station. The last carriage was flipped into the air. The momentum of the derailment carried the carriage into the station, striking a bridge and careering along the platform.
The terror for those on board continued for what must have seemed like an age, but was in reality just a few seconds as the train came sliding across the platform before becoming wedged under the roof.
In the weeks and days before the crash, a number of passengers had complained of rough rides along the line. One of them was Peter Prime from Peterborough.
When we got about 10 minutes out of King's Cross, which was in the Potters Bar area, the train did a huge lurch and there were cups on the table and they went sliding across the table, and other people in the coach were equally alarmed.
For the father of one of the victims, today's verdict offers little comfort. He will continue campaigning in her name.
Emma was a very vibrant people person. She loved people, she loved life, and I know that she would never want any other family to go through the trauma that this has put us through. And I think a lasting tribute to her and to her nature would be if I carried on the fight.
Coroner Judge Michael Findlay Baker QC described the 8-year wait for an inquest as indefensible. He publicly apologised to the families, promising to make a list of recommendations for the industry and ministers. 8 years on, trains continue to thunder through Potters Bar station. A plaque on the platform and a memorial garden are now permanent reminders to those who lost their lives. Their families say the best tribute of all would be a safer railway.
Well, let's head back to Neil. Well, Neil, will that wish be granted? Will there be a safer railway? What happens next?
Well, news as commuters return home tonight is that the Office of Rail Regulation is looking to see whether criminal proceedings can follow. And the Crown Prosecution Service, who ruled out criminal proceedings back in 2005, say they will now look to see whether any new evidence emerged during the 6-week inquest at Letchworth Garden City. And the coroner himself will, in due course, publish that list of recommendations that will pass to government ministers and the industries. The families just hope it goes far enough.
Indeed, Neil, thank you very much for that. So then, the Potters Bar inquest has raised more questions about how our train system is managed and also maintained.
David Hughes has been looking at whether we should be concerned about our rail safety record.
Potters Bar was one of a series of rail crashes in the past decade where faulty tracks were to blame. 2 years earlier, a broken rail further up the line at Hatfield derailed an express at more than 100 miles an hour. 4 were killed. 5 years after Potters Bar, another derailment in Cumbria in 2007, also blamed on faulty points that hadn't been checked.
It's clear from the evidence given to the inquiry that the privatisation of the rail industry created a number of problems in terms of having the right staff, being properly trained and being competent. We're now in a situation where we see a greater use of agency workers and subcontract environments starting to develop as a result of the cutbacks and the savings Network Rail have got to make.
Potters Bar had already highlighted the points as a weak spot on the track system, and changes were implemented. The junctions now have double rather than single bolts. So why did it happen again in Cumbria, and could it happen again?
Well, we have changed a lot since this happened years ago. The railway was different then. Maintenance was done outside what is now Network Rail. Network Rail itself didn't exist then. We brought maintenance back in-house very quickly, and we're running a much, much better railway than was the case then.
There are 500,000 rail passenger journeys a day in the east of England, a figure that has almost doubled in the past 15 years. More and more people are taking the train, but are they worried about safety?
In terms of the maintenance, I'm sure the culture is improved, but it's difficult as an ordinary layman to have any idea if it's better or not.
Accidents happen wherever you go, whether you travel on a train, a plane, in a car, coach, whichever. But I think that at the end of the day, the people that are responsible at the top, who get paid a lot of money, are the ones that should be held accountable.
Hopefully that they'll sort all the problems out very, very soon, really, so nothing like that will happen again.
Engineers say things have changed.
The public acceptability of safety on railways is very low, as it is in any form of public transport. When you trust your life to someone else, you are very intolerant. And I think public transport organisations know that and respond to that with very, very safe situation.
The railways remain one of the safest forms of travel. And that's illustrated starkly by the figures. In the 10 years to 2007, 51 passengers were killed travelling by train. Over the same period on the roads, 31,000 people died. The last passenger to be killed in a rail crash was 3 years ago. Someone dies on the roads every 3 hours. Of course, that doesn't diminish demands that our trains are as safe as they can possibly be. Jonathan and Becky.
David, thank you very much for that. And of course, there'll be more on this story in the main ITV News at 6:30.
Next, the woman who chronicled her own death in pictures and texts on her mobile phone after doctors failed to treat her for meningitis.
Medical staff at Milton Keynes Hospital believed that Jo Downing's illness